Quick question. Anybody know what this is? You've seen one of these. Have you seen one? Anyone's seen them? Yes. This, okay. Most of you. I was looking around for an 8-track. Anybody seen an 8-track before?
I have an 8-track.
Heard of an 8-track before?
I have.
Yes, a few of you. Okay. So this is what I had to listen to when I was your age. Okay. Yeah. I know. I'm old. These existed. But, actually carrying something around that played these was, one, expensive and two, very bulky. So I had this wonderful piece of technology called a Walkman. Ever heard of a Walkman before? All right. So I'm dating myself here a little bit. But at that time, this new digital technology was out that was really popular. Anybody heard of an MP3? You know what an MP3 is? Okay, yeah. So we've got these now, right? Play MP3s, and instead of a CD that holds, let's see what we got, 15 songs on this. No, there's no numbers. I have to count. Probably about 15 songs on this. How many songs can you throw in an MP3 player? More than you could ever listen to, right? Right. So I think you get them literally the size of like a Tic Tac container, right? And I have thousands of songs on it, and never run out of music to listen to. So it's amazing how much we've seen our technology progress in the last, really just 20 years since I graduated high school. To get an idea, I work for a small company out of Seattle known as Microsoft. You might have heard of them. Okay, so I'm in the technology business. I do this for a living. Juniors and seniors, by the way, if you're actually looking for career advice, if you're thinking about going into technology, I'm probably a good guy to talk to, so kind of keep that in mind if you want to talk about that kind of thing. But technology has changed quite a bit just in the last 20 years. And if you look at the Bible times, for the most part, technology was fairly uniform. Here's a trivia question for you, though. During the time of Jesus, there was a new technological invention that was helping Rome cement their power over, at the time, the known world. Does anybody know what that was? We still use it today. Right? Not writing. Nope. Aqueduct? Yeah, all right. That's not what I'm looking for, but yes, that was a newer technology. Anyone else? Yeah. Go ahead. Cement. Concrete. I was playing on words there. Let's see if somebody actually caught that. Yes, concrete. So the Romans were actually using concrete to build roads, and so that they could actually get their troops from point A to point B a lot faster, and that's how they maintained control over the known world. Now, the Bible talks about technology. It talks about it quite a bit, but not in the sense that you and I look at when we think of iPhones, smartphones, MP3 players, DVDs, so on and so forth. So, just a real quick question. How do you define it? Just a quick question. Define technology. What would you define it as? Go ahead.
Something that makes your life easier.
Perfect. All right, I like that one. Makes your life easier, okay? It allows you to do things that you couldn't do on your own with ease. So concrete, right, helps us move faster, right? Now we actually have put motorized vehicles on top of concrete, right? And so I can get from point A to point B even faster than what you could in biblical times. I can turn around and I've mastered the ability to fly now, right? I mean, I fly for a living. I get in a plane a couple times a month and fly somewhere. I can literally get from here to Florida in a couple hours. It's impressive to think about. I'm going 1,000 miles. I can do it in a couple hours. Helps us do things easier. But the Bible, for not having our technology today, though, the Bible does have technology, right? Anybody know some technology that's mentioned in the Bible? Simple things. Go for it.
Bronze. Bronze.
Okay, bronze. Yep. And they shape bronze, right? What do they use it for? Weapons. What else? Defense. Shields. Bronze made a shield. Made a great shield. It was malleable, right? So it's easy to form. Wasn't necessarily good for killing as much with, but it was great for protecting yourself against if someone was trying to kill you. What else? What other types of technology are mentioned in the Bible? Anyone? Go for it. Carts? Yep. Yeah. Plowshares. That's another one I was thinking about. So a great farming society. And so you see them talking about having plowshares, right? So we still use a plowshare today. The difference being is that we hook up like 1 million of them to a really, really big tractor, right? Instead of having an ox plow a field that was probably maybe no more than an acre or two in size that you could farm. You're now looking at these massive farms. I mean, just head out that way, right? You can see some of them, and they hook them up to these very, very large farming equipment and can plow a field in an hour 100 times the size of what they could do back then. So we have technology in the Bible. And the Bible doesn't say there's anything wrong with it, right? We hear anything in the Bible that says, no, don't use plowshares, don't use carts, don't use anything. No, it doesn't. I'll take it a step further. Genesis 1:28, God's command to Adam, what does he tell us to do? He tells us to subdue the earth. Okay, this is more than just, be fruitful, multiply, spread out, but to subdue the earth, so to tame animals, to farm land, to do these things. So there's nothing inherently wrong with technology in the Bible. I say that because I think Christians, myself included, we can get a little bit of a bad rap when it comes to technology, right? The natural tendency is I don't understand it, therefore it's bad. And so technology is no different. And I think especially when you start getting into this type of stuff, there's both good and bad uses, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more, that can come out of these things. And so we need to recognize what's good, take what's good, and put up some sort of defense or protection of ourselves against against items that are not necessarily good. Other technology metaphors in the Bible. So in Psalm 119, 105. Anybody had to memorize that one? This is, anybody know that one? Psalm 119, 105? The word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Have you heard that verse before? Okay, yeah, now you know it, right? So a lamp, right? That was technology for the day. It's kind of interesting to think that was big technology. As a matter of fact, if you read the Bible, especially when you get into some books like Revelation and whatnot, you're talking about somebody that didn't even understand the concept of a light bulb when he's talking about things that are in our future. So, a lamp that was big technology for them. It was the only means they had to see at night, and it was very expensive too, I might add. Okay, it was very expensive. Let's see, Ephesians 6, 10 through 18. Anybody know that one? The armor of God. We know the armor of God. Okay, so more technology, right? But in this case, it's helmet of truth, breastplate of righteousness, these types of things. So, the Bible does embrace technology. This is not in the same sense that you and I think, because this concept right here was completely foreign to the folks that wrote it. Now, it doesn't mean that it was necessarily a bad thing, and I have no doubt in my mind that the characters in the Bible would use this to further the kingdom if they had been given the opportunity. But just understand that they didn't see it. With that being said, let's talk about something else that's common in the Bible. Idolatry. What's that? Anyone? No one wants to tackle that one. So, I'm going to give you we all know what idols are. The Bible talks a lot about idols. But let me give you a slightly different definition of an idol. I would argue that an idol is anything that takes God's rightful place in your life. We all have idols, okay? We don't bow down to a bronze carving of a statue of a god in today's society. We certainly go beyond that. But we have our own idols, do we not? Money, right? That's probably a big one, especially in this culture. We worship the god of money. We like money. Other idols. I think technology has rapidly become an idol in our lives. Let me ask you a question. How much time does everyone in this room spend doing something electronic? Phones, tablets, TV?
I make money.
How much time? Anybody wanna put themselves out there and embarrass themselves?
I don't. I make money.
A lot? Yeah, that's fair. My point here is that we all do this, right? Now, don't get me wrong, electronics aren't necessarily a bad thing, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say if your parents are anything like me, they probably put limits on your electronics, yes? Why do you think they do that?
So I want you to be normal.
So you have a life, okay? No, that's fair. We're going to talk about that a little bit. So that you have a life, okay? Why else? Why else would they do that? Go ahead. They want to encourage you to be social. They want to encourage you to be active. Tell me, how are you going to be active when you're spending 3 hours in front of an Xbox? It's kind of hard to do, right? Yeah, your thumbs are in great shape. Maybe you're doing a fitness game and you can justify it that way. But Don't get me wrong, I do technology for a living. I do a little computer gaming on the side and all that kind of stuff. So I'm right there with you guys. It's not like this is something that I don't do either. But why else do your parents? Why else do your parents limit your technology usage? So you can fitness, just having a life, actual social interaction, meeting other people. What else? Talk about this a little bit more, but it actually affects the way your brains develop. Okay, it really does. So, anybody here deal with lots of headaches, migraines, that kind of stuff? Yes, a few of you are willing to admit it? Okay, all right. So there's actually a known link with spending too much time staring at computer screens and health issues associated with neurological problems and headaches and that kind of stuff. You stare at a computer screen too long, it'll give you a headache. It's a fact. So there's a lot of reasons why your mom and dad might have some limits on it, and I don't think I've necessarily covered all of them, just to give you an idea of a few. But I think we have a tendency to, we like what we see with our technology. We like to play with it. We like to listen to music. We like to play games. We like to interact with people on social media and whatnot. But sometimes it becomes a substitute for the real thing. And in many cases, your technology becomes, shall we say, a barrier to your growth in your relationship with God, because you're spending far more time with your technology than you are, say, in your Word and praying and memorizing Scripture and some of these things that you hear Ian hammer you on to do, right? So when the Bible does talk about idols, it tells you to put your trust in God. So I had a couple of passages. I'm not going to read them. They're long. Psalm 115, 1 through 11 talks about idols and what they can't do, they can't see, they can't hear, they can't, all these other things. And your technology is a lot in the same way, except that we can kind of program it to do some of this stuff for you. I'll say this, working for Microsoft, I've gotten to see some of the next generation technology we're working on right now with robotics and cars that drive themselves and all that. So really, really cool stuff. While, yes, it can have sensors and some of this other kind of stuff, what we're really doing is designing bigger and better idols. That's what we're doing, okay? And we're putting our trust in these idols instead of putting our trust in God. And that's a big deal. Another passage, Isaiah 44, 9 through 20, similar deal. If you want to look those up and read it, it's just basically about, why are you serving idols? They do this, they do that, or they don't do this. And whatnot. Another commandment we have in the Bible. Anybody heard this verse? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. We know that one, right? Okay? All right, we all know that one, okay? And so there's a mind component to that, right? And I think that's where technology really comes into play, because a lot of people who are smarter than all of us figure out the ways to do stuff with standard tools that no one had thought of before. I mean, that's essentially what technology is, right? Some really neat stuff. So using that to the glory of God is a good thing. And as you can see, we use quite a bit of technology right up here on stage, right? We had the words to the song sitting on a monitor. Musical instruments up here, microphones. I mean, I'm speaking with a microphone right now, so you can all hear me in the back, which would be a little bit more difficult to do otherwise, and so on and so forth. So, not necessarily a bad thing, just using it and focusing it properly. Okay, so I have a few verses that I'd really like people to kind of pay a little closer attention to. So 1 Corinthians 10:31. If that one was coming up on the screen. So whatever you eat or drink, or whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. Now, in both of the cases, at least in terms of the verses we're going to talk about in 1 Corinthians, Paul's really talking about another thing called sexual immorality, and I know that I'm sure we've all talked about this here. Right, Ian? Yes? Where'd he go? He's gone. Okay. So, we've all talked about that. And technology can actually be shall we say, a conduit to getting away with sexual immorality a lot more than it is now. Because there is so much of that out there. I'm not going to lie to you. It's out there. It's easy to find, right? The biblical prohibition that we have, at least in terms of how we're supposed to live our life, no matter what we do, we need to do it all for the glory of God. So the first question you should be asking yourself, I think, when it comes to this stuff right here, is, am I glorifying God with it? And I don't care if we're talking about social media, I don't care if we're talking about our phones or computer usage, driving a car, it doesn't really matter. Are we glorifying God with it? Second verse to bring attention, and this was one Ian really wanted to talk about, 1 Corinthians 6:12. Pull that up. I have the right to do anything, right? But not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but I will not be mastered by anything. Now, technology allows us the ability to well, it can master us. It also allows us easier access to the types of things that can master us. Okay? You can be mastered by social media. How much time does everybody spend on social media? I'm just curious. None? That's good. I won't let my kids have I apologize to my son, but I won't let him have a Facebook account. I won't let him have social media. I don't have an Instagram. I do have a Facebook account. But and there's something to be said that at one point, they're going to be allowed to have that. But social media can be it can be a useful tool. It can also be a very dangerous tool, right?
How you do?
Real stuff going on in the world right now. Social media bullying. You hear the stories, right? Somebody gives a picture that they shouldn't give of themselves, and next thing you know, it's being used as blackmail. It happens. People are, let's just say, people can be much tougher behind the screen of a computer than they are in person. You ever seen that happen, right? Internet tough guys? Yeah, they exist, right? We talk about internet tough guys, but, your character is what you do when no one's looking, and it's really easy for you to be a different person when you're sitting behind a keyboard and a monitor and nobody can actually see you face to face, right? It's a lot easier to be a different person. Technology allows for that kind of stuff, and it allows it to master us in ways that it really shouldn't master us. So if there was a verse you're going to put to memory of all the ones we're talking about, this one right here, I have the right to do anything, I can say anything, right? But I'm going to be mastered by nothing. The only thing that should be mastering you is your relationship with Jesus Christ. And if technology can aid in that, great. If it's taking away from it, then perhaps we should go on to really my third point, which is 1 Timothy 2:2. We have that one up. So this is, I'm not really interested. This is actually Paul talking about what he wants to pray for in terms of other people. And he talks about praying for those who are in authority, which, separate lesson for a separate day, is a very good thing. We should be praying for Obama. We should be praying for Hillary Clinton. We should be praying for Donald Trump. Think about that for a second. I know, because I guarantee you most of you don't like some of these guys, right? And I don't blame you. I don't like any of them. But we should be praying for them, okay? But the second part's really wanted to call attention, because we want to live quiet and peaceful lives with all godliness, okay? Understand that when Paul is writing this, living a quiet life was something that Christians didn't have the luxury of doing, okay? You identified with a Christian, what usually happened? Bad things, okay? Yes, you get killed. Paul himself, he lost his head for his faith, okay? Jesus was crucified, obviously. Every single disciple except for John died a rather horrific death. And that's not, I might add, because they didn't try. John died of old age only because they tried to boil him alive in oil and failed. Or at least so Christian history says. Okay, so at the time when this was written, being a Christian was not necessarily like it is today. You didn't live in a free country where you could practice your religion in peace. That didn't exist. But what Paul wanted to live more than anything else was a quiet life. Okay, a quiet life of godliness and holiness. And I'm gonna challenge you guys. If technology is really taking a place in your life where it doesn't belong, then perhaps it's time to go on a technology fast. Okay, so you hear Eric talking about fasting and praying and whatnot. You've probably heard Ian or Rob talking about fasting and praying. I would argue that technology fast is another thing that should be done from time to time, especially if we find ourselves spending way too much time in front of a computer screen, in front of a TV. Maybe it's time to just turn it off, walk away, do something different, get some exercise. Instead of watching TV, pray, right? So on and so forth. Another example I'd note, the early church, that's what they did. They did a lot of praying and fasting. They would get together in rooms like this, and they would just pray and fast together. Kind of an odd concept, very community-based and whatnot. So even though technology was something they embraced, you see in the early church an attitude of simplicity. Okay, and that's kind of what Paul is saying in there, is just that attitude of simplicity, an attitude of quietness and whatnot. So let's talk about... How are we doing on time? Okay, not good. All right, let's talk about the dangers of technology. Okay, I mentioned it's already becoming its own religion. It can be used incorrectly. Anybody know the story of the Tower of Babel? We know that? Right, now, is there anything wrong with building a tower? No. What was wrong with what they were doing? They were trying to become like God. Their words, go read Genesis 11. They were trying to become like God, okay? And we can use the technology to do that, and I think that's part of the reason why we kind of live in a society where God is, I don't want to say God is dead, it just looks kind of cliche-ish right now, but where God has been marginalized because we are our own gods, okay? We really are. We are our own gods. Conformance to the world, Romans 12:2. Anybody know that one? And be not conformed to the world, but be transformed with the renewing of your mind. Everybody know that verse? Ian, you've had to memorize that? Okay, good. And probably the most important one, Luke 16:13, if you want to put that one up. We have that one? No? All right. Oh, there it goes. Okay. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate one and love the other, or you will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Okay. Now, Jesus is obviously clearly talking about money, but I think the standard here applies. It doesn't matter if you're dealing with money, drugs, or sex, or technology, or any of these things that can master us, right? You're going to find yourself hating one and loving the other if you try to serve both. All right, so other things. It's not a substitute for manual practices. So another point I want to make. Anybody here lift weights? A few of you. Okay, wow. All right. All right. No, that's good. That's good. So let me ask you, anybody want to tell, what's a spotter? I heard somebody. What? Yeah, and they get behind. So you're on a bench press, you got a spotter standing behind you. What is his job? All right, way too many people. Go ahead.
If you can't get it up, he helps you rack.
Yes, he helps you rack the weight if you can't lift it up. So, what's the difference between a good and a bad spotter? Yes, okay. All right. So, just a quote. A good spotter knows when to help you, and a bad spotter doesn't, right? What's the bad spotter do? Just grabs it, or the other side unless you hurt yourself. Right? So, I used to lift weights a lot, okay? And, I would always find the weakest person in the room to be my spotter. Anybody know why that is? You don't want them helping too much. Right. Find the weakest person in the room to be your spotter. You don't want them helping too much. When you've got, 250 pounds, 300 pounds on there, whatever you're trying to do, and you're trying to lift that up on a bench press, you want somebody who's not going to take a lot of that off of you because you're not going to get stronger otherwise, okay? This is a big deal with technology. I've had this conversation with my son on more than one occasion. He wants to use a calculator, okay? How many? I think most of you have used a calculator, yes. I will not let him do basic math with a calculator. Why is that?
Because it was your brain.
I want him to learn how to do it himself, right? He doesn't like that, but oh well, I'm his dad. He's stuck. But the point being is this: you take math. It's not necessarily to learn how to do complex calculus or algebra or something like that. It's to teach you how to think logically. And how are you going to do that if you're constantly taking shortcuts? And that's what a calculator is. It's a shortcut. Now, that's not to say it can't be an aid. Okay, there is a time and a place for it. But I think we get in trouble in that we tend to start using, remember, it makes our life easier, right? That's what you said, it makes our life easier. And so we tend to start making this to be a crutch, and we lose skills that we need, whether that's thinking logically, such as math, or here's another really good example. How many of you know how to read a map? A few of you. Most of you use what? GPS, right, okay. So as soon as GPSs came out, anybody that didn't know how to read a map or wasn't very good at it stopped. All right? But what happens? We rely on something like GPS, and the GPS can fail us. Anybody remember the story with Apple Maps here just a few years ago? Remember what happened? They released a product before it was ready to be used, and we were actually using it right when it came out, and we were up in Michigan, and it's telling us to turn right into the Lake Michigan. Okay, well, so now you've got to actually, get the map out and look at it and try to figure it out. But certain skill sets, okay, technology can make it easier, but it can also make those skill sets go away. There's a very real problem in some third world countries these days right now. I've heard missionaries talk about this, where skills that people have been doing for 1,000 years, they don't know how to do anymore. Okay? And it is really that simple. We have relied on technology to the point that we have forgotten how to do basic things. And then when the technology breaks down, what happens? We don't know what to do. Okay? So technology is great for making life easier. It's not necessarily supposed to be a substitute for it. So kind of remember that. I'll use a personal example. I drive a lot of rental cars because I travel. Most of your newer rental cars have the nice video camera there in the back, so you can actually see what's behind you as opposed to looking, in your rearview mirror and whatnot. One of the is to start doing that, and all of a sudden you forget to start turning around. Okay, I'm just using myself as an example. Real simple thing, but when I get back into my own car that doesn't have that feature, right, forget to turn around. Now, fortunately, no one got hurt, but there's a lesson there in that while this can be a great aid, if we forget, or if we can't turn around and just stop doing some of the stuff that we've been doing just because technology does it for us. All right, what are we doing? All right, not good. All right, so last but not least, I wanted to talk about how we can protect ourselves. So, obvious sin issues. Okay, so let's talk about technology and let's talk about sin. We know there's a lot of stuff out there that you can do that we shouldn't be doing, right? Technology makes it very easy to participate in both legal and illegal things, I might add, that are clear sin issues that the Bible is 100% clear on don't do this, and it allows us to do it in secrecy. Okay, now that's the easy stuff. We all know it. I don't need to go through all of this. But let's talk about the less obvious sin for a second. Gossip. Very easy to do on Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat, right? It's easy to do in social media. Gossip is another one. How we treat others, okay? I'll be honest with you. If you're posting in somewhere where nobody really knows where you're at, and you use this as an excuse to, be a jerk, or I could use other terminology for that, but I mean, if you're not carrying out a Christian testimony in how you act, that says a lot about what you are when no one's looking. It says a lot about what you need to work on as a person, okay? And it's an area that I think all of us really need to work on, right? Is how we treat others, especially under the cloak of anonymity. So I mentioned changing mindset. Other things, parents. Let's talk about parents. So most of your parents actually limit your use. So what do you do when mom and dad say no TV, no internet, no computer? What do you do? How do you handle that? You go to sleep. Okay. All right. Fair enough. I know a problem that we've had in our house is that just because we say no doesn't necessarily mean that anybody necessarily wants to do that. So they'll find another piece of technology. Well, you didn't say that I couldn't play the DS. And I'm sure we've all done this, right? Okay. So you're laughing. This one's a little close to home, isn't it? But when mom and dad say, we don't want you to do these things, okay, there is reason behind it, and I can bring you to Ephesians 6:1. I think we all know, children, obey your parents in the Lord. This is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment of promise. But parents do have a reasoning for some of this, and perhaps it's time to actually sit down and talk with them and figure out what they're thinking. I think that's a fair question. Mom and dad say no to something. Your response, okay, you said no, so I'm not going to, but to sit down with them and talk to them and find out what they're thinking about, what they are looking for out of you, because a lot of times they're not saying no because they want to be mean. They're saying no because they see a pattern of behavior in you that they want to correct, and they want to correct it now while you're younger, before you get older and get out into the real world and haven't corrected it. And that's a conversation that you can have with them. That's a fair conversation to have with them. With parents, understand that the goal should be to obey them. I want to kind of close you out here with something that Ian said to me, and I should have had them put this on screen, but at the heart of the message is that technology, specifically social media, video games, TV, movies, smartphones, is not a bad thing. It can be a wonderful tool, but it can also be a distraction. The enemy doesn't care what distracts us from kingdom work, as long as it's been an effective distraction. We need to consider how we use technology. Are we using it to connect with others in deeper ways and learn more about what our God is, or is it a source of increasing pride, self-centeredness, and laziness? I thought it was very well said. I mean, technology can be used to deepen our relationship with God, improve our relationship with other people, connect with people that you wouldn't be able to connect with otherwise. It can certainly be used to better search through the Bible, but it should never replace reading the Bible. It should never replace memorization. It shouldn't replace these things. So, while the Bible doesn't talk about smartphones, it doesn't talk about some of the neat things that we can do with technology, it does talk about lifestyle. and how we can live. And that lifestyle really hasn't changed, right? We can use this technology. Let's use it to the glory of God. Let's not make it an idol. Let's not make it a substitute for other things and whatnot.